interesting with the Packers last night. And we both know they're young and good. But those first two drives, they took Seattle's crowd out of it.
And you got to do that in Seattle.
I'm sitting there watching. I'm like, man, they talked about that all week.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And, going into a hostile environment like that, it's, you're 53 against the world kind of mentality and enemy territory.
Did you like that?
I mean, we loved it. That was our only chance, right? We didn't win the division. Tom Brady was owning our division when we were playing.
Yeah.
So we had to go on the road to the playoffs.
Warriors.
And it just felt like, okay, this is what we do. And once you stack one of those wins, you're like, I like it. Let's do it again. We're kind of the villain coming into town.
Right.
We're the Grinch. We come in, we steal your Christmas and move on and try and go take the next one. That's kind of the way it feels. So I think they've adopted that mentality for sure. And when you go to Seattle like that, you better be ready early. And if you're not ready early, you're going to get punched. And, okay, you're going to be a little wobbly. And then you got to try and come back. And that's really hard to do, to shut that crowd up later in the game after they're already going bonkers. So
I thought of you because I knew you were on the show today, and I thought about this. So I've been joking today that Philadelphia.
Bay Packers are villains. I'm curious to see how fans think about that. I don't see them as villains. I really don't. I'm just not so sure if that's like their identity, their hallmark, honestly. I see the Packers as a team that's pretty much like, we don't, when a lot of teams say like, we don't care about the outside noise, but they obviously do. That's like, you see that so many teams. The Eagles have been like that lately, the Lions, the Chiefs, the Bills. You can just sense it, but they're like, we don't care. We don't pay attention to that. And it's like, okay, sure. It feels like the Packers actually really don't care. Because not to mention, not a lot of people even talk about the Packers. You guys know I rail about this all the time. I'm like, I still don't understand. The Packers are like the most iconic brand. I grew up and it's just like the Packers. I thought the Packers were the Packers. It was like nothing was greater than the Packers. And then I get a little bit older and I find out like, oh, technically like the Dallas Cowboys are more popular. And like then you have like the 49ers and then obviously Patriots and Tom Brady. And I'm like, but like this is the Green Bay Packers. Like they're the Packers. Lambeau, like what? And yet it's still kind of limited attention on them. I mean, think about how good they've been. They're 10-4, and you'd think they have 7-8 wins, and they're like fighting just to get on by. That's what you would think. You would think they don't have a top quarterback, that they didn't just sign this quarterback to a gajillion dollars, who didn't light the league on fire last year. Now, a part of it I think is because of a slower start and Jordan Love getting injured and whatnot, and having those turnovers, which I've already unpacked, so I'm not going to do that again. But I think maybe like part of that. And then you had the Detroit Lions, who came out. Obviously, they were a really great team last year. And then they came out the gate this year and kept winning and like rolling teams. And so I think a lot of energy went there. And that kind of took away. And then not to mention you have rookie quarterback Caleb Williams, who's supposed to like light the league on fire. Supposed to, Nick Wright saying they're going to go to the Super Bowl. So a lot of attention went there. And of course, as we know, Caleb is struggling, and so now the media is going to be like, all right, great, you know what, he's not great, so now we can bash them and just keep making content around that. And then before you know it, it's week 15, 16, and it's like, what's happening with the Packers? Where's the information on the Packers? Quite frankly, both the Packers and the Vikings have gotten not a lot of attention, especially relative to the Bears and the Lions. So I don't see them as villains. I see them as genuinely just like not caring. I really do. That's my read on it. I'd love to know the Packers fans, like how they sense it. Because I just think they're just like, yeah, we're here to just ball, man. We're just here to do what we do. I think when they make big plays, they're not like, that's right, that's who we are. They just do it, honestly. And when they celebrate, it's like a celebration for themselves. I don't think they're actually ever sending a message. Although it's funny because I think when I originally talked about the Packers, I said like it sends a message. But I think it was like not a message in the same way. When I talked about that opening drive, I'm trying to look at what it is. Because I even wrote, the Green Bay Packers are able to do whatever they want. Right, huge message on the road is what I wrote. Because I wrote quick passes, power running, and sent huge message on the road. But I really meant that in more of like, just because of how good. It wasn't even like a message intentional. It was more of kind of like it's like when you're watching a movie and you don't really hear anything about it. Right, I actually just did that recently. I watched this movie. I forget what it's called, like Cardo Lake or Caddo Lake or whatever, Caddo Lake. Really, really good. You have to just look it up. It's on on one of the streaming services. And it was one of those things where I didn't hear much about it at all. I heard like a little blip on a YouTube video, ironically. They're like, oh, this is one of my favorite, mystery style movies. And that's all I needed. I was like, oh, okay, you know what? I'm going to watch this. Like, let me check it out. But I didn't hear anything about it. And as I'm watching it, I'm like, this movie's amazing. This is like unbelievable. I'm like, this is one of the best movies I've ever seen. And that's what it felt like with the Packers. It wasn't like in your face. When you see trailers for movies and they're like, greatest movie ever, and they quoting all the people and everyone's always talking about, have you seen so-and-so? This movie's amazing. This movie's amazing. Or the opposite, where they're like, this movie's awful. This movie's awful. Oh, it's got the lowest ratings on Rotten Tomatoes. And like, you hear so much buzz about them. For me, I feel like there's not a lot of talk about the Packers. So when you watch it, you're kind of sitting back and you're just like, oh my God. Did you just see what they did? Did you see how they just bullied on offense? Did you just see that throw? Did you just see that catch? Did you see that run? Like it's more like you're watching this and you're like, oh my God, that was an unbelievable throw. That was an unbelievable play. That was an unbelievable drive. That was an unbelievable play call, play design, defensive stop. Like, to me, that's what the Green Bay Packers are. They don't have all the hype. They don't have all the buzz. People aren't ripping them and saying that they're overrated. And people aren't saying this is the team to beat. They're the best team in the NFL. They're just like, and so many times people say like, oh, that's right. Keep the team under the radar. To me, the Packers right now are the definition of a team under the radar. Truly. This is actually that game against the Seahawks. And I think probably because there's just so many teams have now fallen, that now you actually see the Packers being talked about more. There's been multiple clips on the herd now, and there definitely had not been in a while. And same thing on First Things First. They had a whole segment, which I've already done, talking about the Packers. And I'm like, they've maybe done like 4 Packers segments, especially like outside of the whole like must-win segment where they cover a lot more teams. But they had like one legitimate Jordan Love segment, and where they were like, he's concerned about his turnovers. And they had another segment where it was like when they had the backup quarterback in, and it was just kind of like, this is impressive. But outside of that, there has not been like truly week-to-week conversations about this Packers and Jordan Love and this team as a whole. There just hasn't. And in fact, some of the games that they've gotten attached to, it was because of them playing a team like the Lions. Like, that's actually where that came from more than anything. Or they played, another more popular big team. And it's not to say that the Packers obviously aren't popular. They clearly are. So I really think they're this definition of going under the radar. You're laying down, watching a movie or watching a show, and you're just like, you have that moment when you're like, oh man, like I literally had that moment watching, let me look it up real fast. Caddo Lake, don't know how to say it. This movie is awesome. Highly recommend it. Obviously, I have no stake in this movie, no nothing. This movie's not trying to tell me to like, do this. But like literally on Saturday, I watched that movie, and I'm like halfway through it. And I'm just like, this might be one of the best movies I've ever seen. Like, especially the style. I don't even want to, if I were you, I wouldn't even like read about it because it'll like spoil some of like what I think makes it special. And that's how it is with the Packers. Although I knew the Packers were a great team and a top team in the NFL. So it's not like they completely caught me off guard. But like, the Packers have not, I wouldn't say that they've been firing at all cylinders, even though they've definitely been a lot smoother over the last few weeks and kind of getting into rhythm. There's still just been kind of some issues. Even against the Lions, it was like that first half, that first drive, first couple of drives, you're like, what are you doing? And then even the Lions defense was able to kind of really take hold. And yeah, they picked things up in the second half, but it was still like not a complete game. And so I'm watching this game and, I'm thinking the Packers are going to win. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know how they're going to win. Is it going to be a close one? Is it going to be back and forth? And at that point, I'd already watched all the games, obviously, because this was the final game, and I'm all tired. And I'm sitting here on this chair in front of my computer, and I'm, watching on YouTube TV. I got my notepad and stuff like that, and I'm still kind of like going through some of my other notes. And I'm kind of just sitting back watching, and I'm just like, oh man. And now I got my finger on the rewind button because now I keep like, hitting 15 seconds back. I'm like, I got to watch this again. I got to watch that again. Oh my God. Got to watch that again. Was that Kraft? Let me watch that again. Oh my God. That throw, that run, the bullet, like that's what it just felt like. It was like, oh man, this is the Packers team that I've been waiting to see. This is the offense and defense for that matter that I know they're capable of being. So I think it was great to see, exciting to see. And definitely a must-needed not just win, but style of victory, quite frankly. I think a win like this can hit more and land more even than playing like the Miami Dolphins in the cold on Thanksgiving, because that was obviously a great all-around win as well, but we know the history of the Dolphins. The Seahawks have honestly had like a lot of momentum, and have also been like a really good feisty team. Geno Smith has been playing honestly great, and I just think on the road against Seattle, doing this the way they did it and kind of continuing that momentum, I think goes a long, long way and really helps them. But those are just my thoughts. Green Bay Packers. Do you trust Green Bay in a crowded NFC race? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me. Either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.